Super special thanks to Chuunibruh and Grimmy for supporting our Patreon. You guys are so much wumpus. Welcome back. Are you guys ready for my repressed childhood memories? Then without further ado, let's dive deeper into the messed up time capsule that is Thomas the Tank Engine. So our next title is called Stepney Gets Lost. So our main character Stepney is asked by Sir Slave Owner to work at a quarry for a day. And of course, like all the other repressed subjects, he has a surprisingly good attitude about being worked half to death. Then while refueling Stepney's boiler, his engineers agree to take on extra tasks after the day is over, despite being advised otherwise by Sir Topham Hatt earlier. And of course, they don't finish until way after dark.
The line can be spooky, said Mavis. Thank you for the warning.
That is not a good sign. On his way back, there's, of course, fog everywhere. Okay, what's gonna happen next? Are we gonna get a guest appearance from Gary Busey? I'm about ready for anything at this point.
There's a signal box, called his driver. And the signal light is green. Someone must have been expecting us. But they weren't.
Ugh, Baldwin, stop, you're scaring the kids! Realizing they took a wrong turn, they decide to wait until the fog lifts, only to discover...
Oh no! We're in the scrapyards!
Holy shit! Yep, the Thomas and Friends graveyard. At this point, I'm not surprised. So Stepney's engineers leave to get some help, leaving him all by himself in the burial ground of his fallen brethren. To make matters worse...
Got you this time, Stepney. You'll make very fine scrap indeed. Buffer 'em, Bert.
So without his engineers, Stepney is kidnapped and taken to a smelting shed. I changed my mind. Gary Busey wouldn't be so bad. So anyway, the Diesels bring Stepney inside the smelting shed, and then they leave him for dead. Should I be surprised that this show reminds me of World War II?
Bye-bye, Stepney. Stepney looked up. Above him was a huge grabber.
Are you kidding me? Can this episode get any more sinister? What is this? Saw for kids? Ah! So now we have the main character kidnapped, helpless, and about to experience certain death. Thomas the Tank Engine, fun for the whole family. Wait, who closed the door in the previous shot? So the McGrabber slowly reaches down to take hold of the protagonist, but...
It stopped. There stood Sir Topham Hatt. It's a good thing I'm visiting this yard tonight. Saving you from scrap is becoming a habit, Stepney. Please stop it.
Okay, you still think he's on a slave owner? It's getting pretty obvious.
But I have learned something. What's that? There's no place like home.
But you're still in the smelting shed. Okay, well, the episode ends and Stepney heads home. Are we forgetting that there are 2 Diesels who are still loose on the island? Are these guys going around kidnapping trains and smelting them to death? Does that mean that all of this scrap used to be anthropomorphic trains who were murdered? Another thing that terrified me in this episode was how the main character was just having a normal busy day, and on his way home he just ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time and nearly dies. And do not even get me started on Grab-Ass McSmelly. Another thing that bugs me is the explanation for the signal and the switch. The narrator states that no one was expecting them, and the switch was set in the wrong direction for some reason? Did those Diesels change the switch? Or was it ghosts?
Bye-bye, Stepney.
Wait a minute. If trains can't move without their drivers, then who's driving the Diesel? Oh. So the next episode on this tape is Haunted It's about ghosts, isn't it? So the main character for this episode, Henry, is about to depart so he can deliver some cargo to another station.
Whenever that owl hoots, a mist rolls in, murmured Edward. There's a legend that when the mist's about, there's a ghost about too.
Called it! Getting a cold one! Oh my god, this tape is killing me. So Henry steams off looking as smug as our president. He even starts complaining to himself.
Owls, mists, ghosts. Edward's going soft at the boiler. There's no mist.
Clearly, Henry has never seen Thomas the Tank Engine. Ugh, you just couldn't resist the fog machine, could you? Then they come across something concerning.
What's that?
Cried Henry. It's an amber lamp, murmured his driver.
Oh, that means the plot is close by.
Who's there? No one replied. Henry crept slowly forward. he stopped by a tree. It had a sign nailed to it, "Beware of the viaduct."
I don't think the scene needs fog. The tension that's building is already enough, and it doesn't help that the music is unsettling as usual.
The signal's red, and the gates are closed. And there's a fogman's coat. But where is its owner? Then they saw a light move within the station building.
Why?
Ghosts! Exclaimed Henry. Edward was right.
Why does Henry think it's ghosts? It's obviously some guy doing his job in a creepy house.
Something very strange is happening, said his driver. I think it's best we go back. So do I, agreed Henry.
But, never mind. So as not to traumatize the young audience any further, they head back the way they came.
Later that day, he spoke to Henry. The viaduct has been repaired. We can take our train back along the old line tonight. Henry really didn't want to.
Can you blame him? But later that night, he ends up feeling a whole lot better until he hears the owl a-hootin', and it just pretty much wrecks his entire mood. The freight cars start making fun of his ass, and then they head back to this poopy place to make the delivery. I remember this part making me feel very uncomfortable because this time he had to go past the station, and I was afraid of what was going to be there because we never actually saw what was in the shed.
Here we go, said Henry's driver. Then, unknown to Henry, the gates mysteriously closed by themselves.
I don't even remember that.
The freight cars had seen everything, and they were spooked. Faster, faster, there's a ghost about.
Okay, what the f is up with this guy's face? So Henry loses control, and they crash through the gate. And once you know it, there's a landslide blocking the tracks.
Henry braked hard, but the freight cars hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine.
So, are these trucks dead too? So as it turns out, the ghost was just a normal-ass guy the whole time. Who'd have thought?
I tried to warn you about the viaduct. Why didn't you pay attention?
Can we just have Alec Baldwin voice everything? So they reopen the station and jazz, and everyone ends up happy except these guys. Hopefully we'll be able to salvage that one guy for the thumbnail. The entire first half of the episode is dedicated to establishing the creepy set and atmosphere. We never see the alleged ghost until way into the episode. It was what I didn't see that terrified me the most. Why would you put Alfred Hitchcock's claim to fame in a kid's show? Okay, we got one last episode. Last on the list is Sir Topham Hatt's holiday. Sir Topham Hatt goes on vacation with his family, something goes wrong, someone tells a joke, Alec Baldwin does some funny voices.
Those coaches are old and uncomfortable. Why don't you use them as beach huts instead?
And the episode ends. It's probably for the best that the tape ended with a story that wouldn't scar children for life. Too late, damage done, I'm going home! And that was Thomas the Tank Engine, Spills and Chills. And it's actually a lot creepier than I remember. And after rewatching all of these episodes as an adult, I'm pretty sure these were meant to scare its young audience. From the general premise of these episodes to the way that they were executed, it's no wonder why they've stayed with me for so long. Even some of the scariest movies I've seen in recent years didn't scare me as much as this tape did. These weren't even the only episodes that were specifically made for scaring children. And even if they weren't trying to scare you, they sometimes either involved characters getting torn to shreds, or once again facing certain death. In a show essentially made for super young kids. I mean, we have episodes about ghosts, giant killer coconuts, dead trains, more ghosts, kidnapping, the Holocaust, even more ghosts, an anonymous screenplay that might as well have been written by Alfred Hitchcock. This show is messed up. Not even Beast Wars got this weird.
Oh, I like you, pussycat. Yes.
And I'm not the only one who thinks this show is messed up. Here are some thoughts from the lovely Munchkins who helped me make this video.
Thomas the Tank Engine was awesome. Like, legit, coolest show ever. I mean, it had an amazing theme song that has been turned into all kinds of rap songs since that day. It had a ton of explosions with people and trains succumbing to horrible injuries and dying and, well, kind of dying. It's still a kid's show. A bunch of other things too. It's like a baby version of Animal Farm. Ah, crap.
I think the collection of stories was very scary, actually. You don't really realize how scary some of that stuff is or how messed up it is until you get older, you know? I think the story that stood out the most to me was the one with the boulder atop that cliff. And I guess what was the most unsettling was everyone had kind of accepted that this boulder was somehow sentient, and it had become, they like personified this boulder, and the face on it certainly didn't help matters. But yeah, this collection was very, very creepy. But it was entertaining, so there is that.
When I was a kid, I watched Thomas the Tank Engine, but in all honesty, I don't remember anything of it apart from the movie, like the live action one. That's all I remember. But yeah, no, I can see how these collections can be like dramatic, especially the one with Toby, when the fucking smoke comes in and it's all like, shit, it's super smoke all of a sudden. I would be like, I must get out of here. Fucking hell, there's like dead corpses of trains, there's smoke everywhere, why the fuck am I here? And I should get out. My thoughts on the series itself though, they're harmless, but they also can stretch the mark of like, whoa, that's really something, isn't it?
Overall, the show was quite an interesting show to watch. Also, it's nice to see that there was no computers and such at the time of what they did. It was all under. There was no CGI. It was all under using models. Also, these trains were also linked to, at the time, links to pretty much British trains which run in the UK and such. In fact, some of these trains are still running to this current day, thanks to private lines like, for example, the East Lancashire Railway, which I used to go to when I was young. Overall, if you're a senior locomotive who is fearing for his life at the scrapyard, which is where sadly some trains do go to die, I would be quite worried about it.
So my initial feeling when I guess felt the most scared was when he was trying to go across the bridge and he thought he saw a ghost. Now trains with eyeballs period are a relatively scary concept, but the shot where he's looking and then he sees the fireflies or the bugs come together, I was like, oh crap, what's about to happen? And then when his conductor throws a rock in the water, I was like, oh crap, it's about to go down. And I guess that was the part that I really was like anticipating the worst, and that's where I was scared.
Anyway, yep, this show definitely made an impression. Heck, the show is still running to this very day, though it's gone through a lot of changes over the years. It's even in CG now, but I can appreciate that kids these days can grow up with Thomas the Tank Engine like I did. Hopefully minus the nightmares. Okay, I'm done, goodbye.